Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the second day of the ERI e-Congress. We are going to begin today with a roundtable, and we have many of the speakers here from yesterday as well as our speakers for today. And we're going to open up the first question is regarding integrality in science and life for modern society. The first question is it possible to change the program of development of society and humanity in accordance with universal laws? I will repeat that again. Is it possible to change the program of development of society and humanity in accordance with universal laws? So we will just do anybody who would like to begin.
I would like to begin, if you don't mind. Hello, everybody. It's a very interesting question, but it is even more possible to change this development program because it never existed. Society, not to say humanities, is constituted on the simple rule resulting from the most remote age, which was to instinctively want to survive, and which gradually became the strongest will live to the detriment of the weakest. And until today, has become a sort of Pavlovian reflex, totally contrary to the system of interdependence on which all creation is based. In short, we are still in the animal kingdom.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lack. Is there anybody else? Just please chime in.
Okay, maybe I can also add some few words about it. From my point of view, we really need, first of all, to study and to understand these universal laws. Not all of them modern science already knows, and this is why we have organized actually our institute, IVRI, in order to just reveal some of these laws which are not so obvious for our science. And then we would like to study these laws both theoretically and experimentally, and the implementation then follow. And we would like for sure be the first experimentators who will check these laws on our own life, and it's the social laws. But they are so universal that actually they are also implied in all other levels of the matter. I mean, on the still, vegetate, and animal level. If people will follow these laws, then each and every other level will be also in change according to the people behavior. This is really something that the modern science not so clear understand and can explain, but it follows from the integrality of our world. So I believe it will be so. Please continue.
Можно мне тоже выступить?
May I say, I think the main function of the society is not transformation of reality, but also adapting to it. the adaptive function is very important. And I think that not only it's not just about learning the laws, but discovering the laws in our life. This will compel us to adapt to them. The more we feel this influence of these laws on ourselves, this is actually happening already. We're already feeling that the transformation of reality is not working anymore. It turns against us. That's why we have to adapt and to change ourselves and the society and not the world around. May I add, really, humanity has been developing for a long, long time under the influence of adaptive mechanisms in order to adapt better and organize our space around us. At some moments, if we talk about history of evolution in its social aspect, there were times when people felt that at times where that they disconnected from nature way too much, that we have a desire and the mind that was developing very fast. This mind distracted us from the fact that it's not that humans are not disconnected from nature, but they're an integral part of nature. And the answer is yes. It's possible and it's necessary, because otherwise we'll move down a very difficult path. We've come close to this point, the turning point, to feel ourselves connected with multiple threads, with nature and with the space around us, and that we're all interconnected, and this nature cannot develop, including us. It cannot develop in a way it has been. We have to use the knowledge, the wisdom from humanity from the past, which originally established this influence of nature over us. And I think that the work that we do, this will help us to feel the public consciousness, and we can act like a social force, a natural force, only in the direction of the law of development, which says that we have to obey the law of development. Thank you. May I add also? Humanity and the universe at large develops according to global laws. And the history of humanity says that any attempts to change these laws, they hit back like a boomerang. They hit humanity back. And the other thing is that if humankind assumes that it has been able to control a certain law of nature, that's because this law has not been studied completely, and that's why we assume that we can control nature. But if we knew that the full extent to which we depend on it, we would see otherwise. And whether we want it or not, we have to follow the laws of development. I'd also like to add, I'm sure that everyone has said this already, but I'd also like to add everything that has been up to this point is connected maybe not so much with following the law of nature, but it's trying to use the law of nature to our own advantage, to use this for our own benefit and exploit others for the same reason. It's the same with individuals and corporations these days. And everyone tries to benefit from all the rest in this way. And we have to make this conclusion that the enemy is in me, and only adapting ourselves to the laws of nature, being in agreement with them, by changing myself, I can bring about this harmony, and everything will happen automatically. If I understand that my desire, if I put my needs above everything else, if this mechanism changes, and this is not that easy because this is our nature, then if we turn this around, we can do this. And our main message is that we shouldn't change anything around us. There's no such thing as bad things. I have this egotistical engine of development. This is the main thing that advances us, but I have to put others above my interests. Then everything will come to harmony, and we'll live in agreement with the laws of nature. I'd like to add a few words. Right now we have this paradigm, noosphere civilization. Vladimir Vernadsky wrote about this, Pierre de Chardin wrote about this. This is what we talk about, that what needs to appear is a harmonious human society that exists in a harmonious way with each other and with nature. But in order for it to exist in a harmonious way, it has to feel itself one system, one family. And this is a big difficulty and the biggest challenge that lies ahead of us. And that's why it's very important, in order to accelerate this process, is to understand that this variety of nations and states, and in each one of those states there will be multiple parties and multiple religions who are very different, and this is not only useful, but it's necessary in order to create this harmonious society. In order to come to this society which exists in a harmonious way. And we have to remind ourselves that we don't know a planet like this which allows for intelligent life to exist, and that's why we have to become one single humanity. I think that's very important. May I add also, I think the question is not whether it's possible or not, but how to do it. The thing is that our human society is also developed according to these laws of development, and we're in a certain stage of that development right now. The question is, how do we get to the next evolutionary degree? How do we recognize it? How do we see it? And how can we come to it? And the question is simple. If we do this, at some point we'll become some warm-blooded little warm-blooded mice that have survived all the catastrophes, and if not, we'll be like the dinosaurs that were destroyed, and it's up to us.
I would like to add to everything that you already said, and those are very important things, that we as scientists have extremely important role in this process, because we are both inside of the system and outside of the system. On one hand, what we do is participate in the process of evolution and development of the system. And at the same time, we have the capability of working collaboratively and learning the laws from outside, analyzing the system, learning what factors are influencing the system and how they are doing it. And we are also capable of providing this knowledge and advice to those who need to make decisions for the future of the world. So we are in a unique position, but it brings a lot of responsibility that needs to be used and leveraged for the change that we are looking forward to see. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful discussion. Our next question is, what role can integral education play in bringing humanity together? What role can integral education play in bringing humanity together? Well, there's a follow-up question to that. Maybe this would, Professor Krasnov. Wonderful. Please. Thank you.
May I start? In essence, the concept of education includes two things. It's the teaching itself, so the knowledge that we've accumulated, and if we take formal education is forming certain competencies that enable us to achieve a particular goal. And the second part is upbringing. So when we're speaking of upbringing, it means forming socially accepted and acceptable modes of behavior which form an individual in a certain way so that it agrees with, corresponds to certain laws of society that they exist in, and which initiate this system of education. Because we see that in different cultures there are different types of education, and they exist in order to support the development of the society in which this person exists. I would like to emphasize this part of upbringing more. How is this formed? How does this upbringing happen? It's an attempt to repeat the models of behavior that have existed throughout our history. It's like a replication of ways of behaving. And integral education attempts to form a new model of behavior, not the one that exists, but the one that we want to achieve. Many systems of education try to forecast what kind of education should exist in our society, but this is done in an intuitive way and directed at supporting national systems, manufacturing, culture, and so on. And in essence, the system that has been forecasting what humanity should be like on the next level, this is what futurologists do, but they can also extrapolate using the existing templates, existing schemas, but in order to create something that is expected from us by nature, then integral education allows us to achieve this. This is what the scientists in this field try to model these modes of behavior that we discussed in the last question. I would add to this the third aspect is education, upbringing, and also development. And what we need to give people, we need to give people knowledge, the laws on the material level, on the social level, on the spiritual level. People have to know about the laws, because not knowing the law doesn't absolve you of responsibility. When in upbringing, the only way we can do it is by example. If we don't pass on the necessary skills to people that they need to have to use the knowledge that we give them, then they can't use it. It's very important to give them the opportunity to develop certain skills, which we have to put in them. And a person needs to know how to develop these instruments in a certain team, for example, that does these things. So it's the three whales: education, upbringing, and development.
Можно мне тоже несколько слов сказать? По-моему, здесь есть одна большая проблема, о которой надо, очевидно, как-то подумать.
Another thing we have to think about is we'll teach certain models of behavior.
Интегрального поведения. Как они будут
how will these models of behavior that we give to people will connect to the ones that exist now? I think it's a very important thing. There shouldn't be a double standard in this.
Не совсем, мягко говоря, правильная воспитательная мера. И вместе с тем, вероятно, далеко не все модели интегрального
I assume that not all the models of integral education will be applicable to real life at work, in education, and so on, except for certain groups, integral groups, where people are consciously developing. So the question is, which models of behavior can we use in society? Which ones can we use? Which ones can't we use? I think it's an important question.
Thank you so much. Wonderful discussion. We do have a follow-up question to that. And the question is, what examples of practical implementation of the integrated methodology are available in different areas of knowledge and activity? I will repeat. What examples of practical implementation of the integrated methodology are available in different areas of knowledge and activity?
Perhaps I can offer a possibility. It's not exactly, but one area might be considered the semiconductor industry. The integrated circuit was born out of inevitable dead end in electronics in such areas of speed, memory, power consumption, etc., and specifically concerning space applications weight. It took interdisciplinary work, in physics, chemistry, metallurgy, various other fields together, and basically in quality control Had there been less competition, more collaboration, far faster progress would have been made, product compatibility would have been better, cost reduction, etc. If they did a true integration as well as the circuits being integrated. However, even in the world of the circuit itself, the very fact that they were able to do that led that nonetheless, because of Moore's law, which was a law that transistor number per chip increased by about 2 per every 2 years, and it's just ending now because of economic reasons, not technological. Including many innovations in materials and such that around it, that you have incredible increases in speed. I mean, there's nothing more to say, but your mobile phones and your laptops lie before you. One last thing I just close it on that is that 20th century futurist Arthur C. Clarke stated that any sufficiently advanced technology will appear like magic to a simpler society. And one is really awestruck at the potential of integral methodology if applied to humans and human society itself, becoming the technology over its all then balanced and integrated particular endeavors.
At the moment, this example of practical implementation of the integrated methodology are still in their infancy. And moreover, it suffers from a lack of consultation and absence of unity between the actors wishing to carry out this program. This is paradoxical for such a program advocating an integrated methodology. It will be a question of quickly constituting an institution coordinating the implementation of specific programs of this method of integration and the most varied field of our societies. And let us firmly hope that Ivry will be the beacon.
Thank you. For all the speakers who are answering questions, if you could speak a little bit slower, since our translators will do a much better job at understanding and hearing the words. Thank you so much. Please continue.
I think that maybe one of the easiest ways to implement the integrated methodology would be in terms of collaborative research across disciplines and across different parts of the world. This is something that we can do on our own from the beginning, and we do not actually need many resources. So we can give an example also to other scientists and also to other people who would like to use this methodology, how you can use different approaches and different methodologies and combine them in order to gain a completely different and much more objective point of view about the reality and about the topics that we are looking into. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We do have questions from yesterday, and we will address those. We have one more question from our roundtable. What does the new civilizational strategy of integral education and upbringing look like? What does the new civilizational strategy of integral education and upbringing look like?
All right, I should jump in again, but regarding education, I would classically have looked at participants separately, indeed noting their social interactions, but only as part of their personal encounter with the environment. With integral education, the matter becomes like a tensor analysis. That is where the effect of n participants upon each of n-1 others forms an n by n matrix, with diagonal elements being the independent nature of the participants themselves. And that, alternatively, this could have been seen as a network of weighted connections like neural networks used to program artificial intelligence. The goal is not to lose the humanity of the individuals, but rather the opposite, to add a vast new social connection dimension to it. The complexities will make the preferred educational environment an online one, as I'd say it, as presently forced upon us in any case due to the pandemic. In this manner, the databases required are automatically generated, leaving us just to develop the appropriate analysis tools. Integral upbringing means a home has become both a support to IE outside the home and a family-sized role model of its principles inside. This means mutual love and responsibility demonstrated in a roundtable democracy within common sense limits, given that some members may be very young children, of course.
Well, thank you. We do have from Serhiy Lubenko a question. All the speakers speak of the universal laws of nature. Which laws are we talking about? Or is everyone talking about their personal universal laws? I will repeat. All the speakers speak of the universal laws of nature. Which laws are we talking about? Or is everyone talking about their personal universal laws? Thank you.
Okay. I'll speak in Russian, probably, in order to make more points.
We're speaking about universal laws which actually exist in nature. For example, the law of harmony of balance. Actually, science doesn't understand why our system of the universe has to be in such balance. Because in terms of physics, what could have been is something completely different. Some other kind of arrangement. Physics talks about interaction. Physics and other sciences already understand nature in a complex way. And the law of equivalence of qualities and resonance. But when we talk about the society, there is no science that can explain phenomena in a universal way, that can explain everything that's happening on the levels of still, vegetative, and animate. We can, so plants and animals, we can draw some accurate conclusions, maybe when talking about electricity and so on, but not so much on the social level. Another thing is that the general and the particular are equal, the fractality of our existence. Especially in the living organisms, an animal is born as a small copy of its parents. But maybe it's much more so even in the minerals and plants. And the law of globality, as scientists say, that this reveals certain code in nature, and science, contemporary science, is very far away from deciphering that code. Another thing is we see that there is a golden section in everything, in the micro world, in the macro world, and this golden section it's never been understood by scientists, where it came from and how to relate to it. And why is that so? Is because in our reality, in our universe, there is a certain code. But what is this code? Who coded these codes? Of course, that's a mystery to scientists. I'll also add, Professor Ephraim,
относительно того, что недостаточно действительно нам просто называть эти
it's not
законы
enough for us
и разрабатывать их
to
в
state
пределах
these laws
различных дисциплин.
and
Мы
develop them
знаем,
in different
что все
disciplines.
названные
We
законы
know
развития,
there is a law
скажем,
of development. We can
рассматриваются
see
в
them
многих
in many
дисциплинах,
disciplines,
но
but
тем не менее мы не
nevertheless,
забываем и
we forget
задаемся
and
все время
we
теми же
ask
вопросами,
the same
забываем о том, что
questions, and we
развитие
forget that
это тоже
development
довольно
is
сложный
a
процесс.
rather complex
Это
process.
связано
It's
и
connected
с
to
эволюцией, да?
evolution.
Тут и есть
There are
параллель.
parallels
То
here.
есть эволюционирует что-то уже
Evolution is
возникшее, то
something
есть
that's
есть
already
определенные
happened,
стадии. И когда мы говорим, например, о социальных законах
and there are
развития,
certain
то мы
stages.
должны
And when
учитывать,
we talk
что
about
возникнув
social
когда-то
evolution,
человеческое сообщество,
we see
сегодня
that
стало обществом,
humanity, human
но
society first
человечеством.
appeared, and now it's a
Понимаете,
society,
проблема в
and
том,
it's
что
also
общество действительно оно
humankind,
эволюционирует по своим,
and it
в
and
принципе,
it
законам развития, потом,
and it goes down this
который
process of
избрали
evolution in
люди
a
в
certain way.
определенный исторический момент, подчиняясь своим бессознательным
People
порывам. Теперь есть
developed
вопрос
in an unconscious way,
о том,
just
что
following
да, мы прошли
instincts.
стадии, есть какие-то.
And
Это
the other
стадии
stages here are the
возникновения,
stages of
становления,
appearance
дифференциации и
and
трансформации. И мы можем показать, как
disinformation
в
and
социально-культурном,
stagnation and so on.
социально-историческом, историко-культурном, в любых аспектах,
We
как
can
развивалось наше общество. Мы
refer
здесь не хотим
to
признать,
the
что мы
past
достигли сегодня конечной
and
стадии. Это период
see how
трансформации. У нас
society
были эти периоды.
see how
Всегда
society
меняли либо
developed.
формации, либо
We've
у нас были
also
революции
we don't want to
информационные,
accept that right now we're in the stage
шовинистические.
of
Сегодня
transformation,
уровень
which
другой.
precedes
Сегодня
decline.
трансформация уже из материальных наших, из нашей материальной системы,
Nowadays,
нашей
we're
биологической
transforming
системы,
from
в которой
our
человечество стало той геологической силой, о которой говорил
from
Вернадский.
our
Мы подошли к
material
рубежу духовной
level,
трансформации. И у нас,
which is the plane
есть ли у
in
нас
which we
выбор? Да.
existed for
Если мы помним, что
most of
существует
our
еще
history.
закон детерминации,
As
он
Vernadsky
тоже
is saying,
работает в социальных
we
структурах, то нам
we're
нужно
at the
смотреть,
verge
как
of
он
moving to the
действует.
spiritual
То
degree,
есть переносить знания о законах в практическую
and we
сферу
somehow have
нашей
to
деятельности и
take the
воспитания и
laws
образования. Вот в этом проблема.
and
Опять, как о чем
explain
говорил
them in a
Максим
practical
Столяров,
way.
нужно помнить,
We have to
что
remember that
сейчас разворачивается
nowadays
стратегия
there
воспитания
is a
образования,
strategy
начиная от новорожденных и
of
заканчивая
education
представителями
and
золотого века.
upbringing.
С любого момента
Starts
можно
from
начинать обучаться
newborns
пониманию
and
мира и овладеванию
to
новыми
adults.
знаниями о том, как он устроен, кто такой человек. Спасибо.
I'd like to mention another law, which I think is one of the most important ones. We see that development happens from the simplest constituent parts of the world through unity, from simple to the complex, and then there's a connection of these into more complex parts. When we speaking of existence of matter on Earth, for example, this hierarchy of still, vegetative, animate, and human, the matter is folded in a smaller volume, but has a more complex structure. It's more saturated with information. Here there is a principle that this development of nature, it pushes all the parts to development in two ways. It's being drawn to development individually when the individual wants to grow, and the limitations that a high level places on the individual, if this part starts to harm the other elements, then it's limited by the system. And these parts have to obey the interests of the many, and we have to see if where we're harming the general, and where it's for the good. So we have to talk about this law of conformity of the individual to the general.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to add a few words. That's correct. The individual the particular has to conform to the general. Where the general is made up of very conflicting different elements, parties, movements, and so on, different nations and countries that are at a different level of development and want different things. So connecting this this variety is by realizing that this variety is good, and the unity that is revealed in the balance of opposites. And perhaps this is very close to this concept of the golden ratio, golden section, and similar to the law of dialectics, where the opposites are the most important thing. That's the key thing for anything to exist. Things exist together, and when they exist together, that's where we get this connection of the particular into one. And this variety, these disparate objects have to exist.
Thank you. Thank you so much. A wonderful discussion. Thank you so much. We do need to move on. We begin with our presenters for today. For those of you who have come in during this roundtable discussion, this is our second day of our second International Scientific Conference. And the topic for our conference is solving the global problems of modernity. I think there's a misspelled word there, through integration in society and science and culture.